Hello again, friends. And you are our friends, and welcome to another quarantined edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here from your living room or perhaps your bedroom. Perhaps you have a home office, or maybe you're in the garage. Perhaps you're hiding from your family. Wherever you are, we are here, and you are there. I'm the great Brian Last, your host, and the man who will joyfully be answering your questions and your many, many inquiries this week, as he does each and every week. Mr. Warmth, the exalted one of the cult of Cornette, Jim Cornette.
I mentioned that I've been so busy, Brian, because I've been trying to catch up with the orders at jimcornette.com. Just a quick update on everything. I filled over 200 orders yesterday. Packed them, got them ready to. I don't know how the fuck I'm going to get all this shit to the post office Monday morning. But if you've ordered in the last 2 weeks, your shit is either already on the way or is actually wrapped up and will be sent out in the next couple of days. I'm shipping every morning for at least an hour, every weekday morning this week. If you've been to the site in the last day or so, you'll notice the Wrestling Gold set has been taken down. It is sold out. The 5-disc, 10-hour Wrestling Gold set in the library case, autographed, is sold out. However, Brian, you know I've got something good for the people when I say however. Everybody remembers when I first talked about this thing, it was a warehouse sale. I bought the entire warehouse of all the old Wrestling Gold line DVDs, direct from the source. And when I got all these, there were 4 big boxes of loose DVDs on spindles, direct from the manufacturer, never even been put in the case. Of the Wrestling Gold discs, but I don't have the library cases. We don't have the big special covers and everything. So I got in these boxes and I figured out, because there's odd amounts of each disc. It's a 5-disc set, and there's hundreds and hundreds of one of the discs, but there's not that many of the one of the other discs, and blah, blah, blah. But with a quick once-over, I've figured out that I think I can put together another couple of hundred of these sets from the loose DVDs. They're professionally done. They're straight off the spindle from the manufacturer. Nice color labels. I'm putting them in those nice hard plastic jewel cases, and I can make a couple of hundred complete sets. They don't have the library case, and I'm not going to autograph them for this price, folks, but you missed out on the Wrestling Gold set. Tell you what I'm going to do. 5 discs, 10 hours in the jewel cases. $5, Brian Last. $5.
Maybe you should raise that price a little bit.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to do it because I'm calling it the quarantine special. For the people that have missed out, because I can't give them the full product that was offered, I'm cutting the price, and you get 10 hours of classic wrestling for $5. I'm not going to sign it because now we're just getting ridiculous, for fuck's sake. The next step is paying people to take my autograph. So I'm not going to sign this fucking particular thing, but 10 hours for $5, and that should be, because this is all a work in progress as we record this, that should be on sale by the time you hear my voice. The rest of the DVDs, as we know, the Blood Brawls and Grudges Smoky Mountain collection sold out a long time ago. I think last year, or was it Christmas year before? The Double the Rumble sold out quite a long time ago. There's no more of those. Wrestling's Future Stars, still listed on the website. Less than 100 of those remain at $9. We still do have Before They Were Famous at $9, but here's some big news. You knew I was going to end this thing on an up note, Brian. When I got in the boxes to get the Wrestling Gold loose DVDs to find out what I could put together, one of the boxes was mislabeled. It was not only Wrestling Gold DVDs, but do you know what else was in there, Brian?
Porn.
No. I got the porn in the closet. The Night of Legends. I was never told there were more Night of Legends. The Night of Legends, the best wrestling event that Smoky Mountain Wrestling ever produced. The sold-out Knoxville Civic Coliseum, the 4-hour extravaganza with all of the matches and all of the recaps of the rivalries and the feuds. They've been in there all the time. The Night of Legends sold out months and months and months ago. So, for a limited time, because there ain't that many of these, the Night of Legends is back up, and I will autograph this for $9. We're putting these in a box, slapping the cover on it, and $9 out the door autographed. The Night of Legends. So if you've missed out on the Night of Legends before, you're one of the new listeners, for a limited time, we're dealing. Night of Legends. Anyway, so JimCornette.com, folks. If you've already sent me money, I appreciate it, and your stuff is rapidly making its way to you. And now that I've just plugged this, I'm sure I'll be behind again, so get your orders in early. And the action figures, there may be around 100 to 110 left. I've got to check. But those from China will not be making a reappearance. And by the way, I'm spraying them down with Lysol before they go in the box. Anyway, so that's the JimCornette.com merchandise update. You know why I'm so grumpy, don't you?
I don't know, and I don't know where we're going from here.
Because I remain cakeless.
Oh, come on.
I remain without cake. We now not only on the YouTube channel, which you won't play that provocative piece on that I just mentioned. Does China own YouTube? Anyway, not only do we have 100,000 subscribers, now we got 103,000?
It's rising. It just keeps going up. Yeah.
Yeah. And my cake keeps not coming. I'm cakeless. People are now laughing about it on Twitter that I've been not caked. I'm cakeless. And a respectable organization like YouTube seems like they could make a call and say, "Excuse me, Mr. Baker, gentlemen, did Mr. Cornette get his cake, his celebratory cake for 100,000 subscribers?" No, I got nothing.
So this has gone from you wanting me to get the cake to now you want YouTube to actually contact a baker and get the cake.
Well, God, you would think it was YouTube's job to begin with because we got 100,000 subscribers on their channel. That should be part of the fucking, but if not, then certainly I figured you would. You being my longtime bosom buddy and lifelong friend, close confidant, dear personal acquaintance. You didn't get me a fucking cake. YouTube didn't get me a fucking cake.
It's because we want you to dye it.
Why? What color is it now?
Are you going to dye it? That's good.
Yeah, see? There you know what I'm going to do, goddammit? That's Roddy Garvin told me a joke one time. He said he was at the gym working out, and this big fat guy walked in. And Ronnie looked at the guy and he said, "Jesus Christ, you're fucking fat." How fucking, he's got that accent, right? He said, "How fucking fat are you? For fuck's sake, you must weigh 400 fucking pounds." He said, "When's the last time you've seen your dick?" And the guy said, "I don't know. It's been a while." And Ronnie said, "Why don't you dye it?" And the guy said, "Why? What color is it now?" But anyway, I am thinking about legal action. Legal action if I do not have a cake delivered, brought to, sent to, transported to Castle Cornette within the next, I'm going to say 10 days. I'm thinking about legal action. I don't know whether I'm going to sue you, Brian. I don't know. I think I should sue YouTube because they probably got more money. But one way or another, I'm going to file legal action if I don't get my cake, and guess who's going to file it for me?
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Still to the rest.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's a class action suit that you want to join against admitted bad eaters for making you sick, whether it's a situation where a large major corporation has withheld your celebratory cake, that happens to everybody, or whether it's something else that happens to everybody, like a big corporation jacking you around, infringing on your rights, a pharmaceutical company that harms you and gives you a disease with their medication, or a big major corporation that manufactures a defective product that harms you in some type of way, or any other way that negligence, greed, and corporate avarice has harmed you, your family, or your close circle of social friends, then Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084 is the man to call. He's a legend now. A legend in his own time among the cult of Cornette members and the wrestling fans in general, because of his intervention in a variety of situations to fight for the rights of every man. He is a real American, not like that fucking Hogan character. And Stephen P. New has become not only a wrestling personality, but a man who stands up for the rights of wrestling fans and wrestling personalities. You just heard him last week, I think it was. He was on here talking about the potential for unemployment benefits and small business loans for people in the wrestling industry. But whether you're in wrestling or you're just wrestling with a legal problem, Stephen P. New is the man for you. Get even with Stephen. If you need to sue, call Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084, newlawoffice.com. You haven't seen a lot of parody Jim Cornette shirts coming out of a certain place in Pennsylvania lately, because he's been dunking on the Outlaw Mud Show attorney at every turn. And there's beginning to be rumbles of painful squealing and yelling like a pig stuck under a gate from certain parts of Pennsylvania. And folks, all I can say is, if you want somebody to squeal like a pig under a gate when they've done you wrong, Stephen P. New is a man that can make that pig squeal. Right, Brian?
That's what I hear.
Well, you've seen it. You've seen it in action. You've seen him lay the hammer of justice down. Maybe they weren't squealing like a pig. Maybe they weren't doing the Ned Beatty. You know, he was from Kentucky, by the way.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, he certainly was. But they will roll over and play dead for Stephen P. New. I guarantee it. Who was that used to do that? It's a fucking, he was a fucking chef, a Cajun chef. I guarantee it.
I don't know. You remember the Galloping Gourmet?
Graham Kerr.
He was great until he had that stroke, and then he couldn't gallop anymore.
Oh, God damn it. Oh, and then he kind of drooped and drooled, didn't he? Yeah, it was. But yeah,
he wasn't
but yes.
drunk and jolly like he had been on the early episodes.
He was, with the exception of John Steed, he was the first English gentleman that I that's how I learned to do English accents, from John Steed and Graham Kerr.
Hold on now.
What?
Are you known for your English accents?
Well, I don't mean to brag or anything, but at get-togethers and Super Bowl parties and stuff, I like to occasionally pull out the old English accent. Well, it depends on whether you're going for Cockney. If you're going for a Cockney accent, mate, or if you're going for the more upper crust type of the Cadbury and Richie Rich type of. You always heard Cadbury speaking somewhat like, and Sebastian Cabot, and possibly how could I forget, even my first English influence before John Steed was Sebastian Cabot on Family Affair.
That may have been the worst Cockney accent I ever heard, other than Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins. Whatever you just did there.
Yeah, Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins sounded like an Englishman from fucking Kansas, didn't he? It was fucking embarrassing. But Sebastian Cabot was so fucking reserved and so dignified and everything. I remember one episode he was calling on the phone inquiring about the possibility of obtaining a beard snood, because his beard, when he woke up in the morning, was in classic disarray. He's a very, very fine, refined gentleman, Sebastian Cabot.
All right, well, where do we go from here?
All right, well, I guess maybe so. Have we plugged everything? Have we told the people what they need to know? Have we imparted the information? This is your show. You're supposed
I know, you've taken it over this week. You've just
Well, goddamn it, I told you I was cranky. What about that fucking Ronda Rousey?
Well, let's talk a little bit about Ronda Rousey, because I have to say, in the last 4 days, 5 days or so, we've received more questions about Ronda Rousey than maybe any other topic that's ever come in a short period of time. How closely have you followed the recent outcry about Ronda Rousey's statements on pro wrestling?
Well, just over the last day, I've seen this shit on Twitter and people talking about it, and then obviously read what she said. They had a transcript.
Well, did you see the first thing? What started everything kind of going?
Well, I don't know. What started everything? What's causing all this?
She apparently was on the podcast that former MTV Jackass star Steve-O has.
Well, yeah, that's where she said, I had fun going out and playing, having fake fights with my friends, having fake fights with the girls. That was fun, right? That was the first thing.
Well, what she said, here's a quote.
All right.
What am I doing it for if I'm not being able to spend my time and energy on my family, but instead spending my time and energy on a bunch of fucking ungrateful fans that don't even appreciate me?
Well, I was getting there, but wasn't the fake fights before that?
No, I think that was after this.
Oh, all right then.
I love performing. I love the girls. I love being out there. But at the end of the day, I was just like, fuck these fans, dude. I love the WWE. I had such a great time. I love all the girls in the locker room. Running out there and having fake fights for fun is just the best thing.
Okay, yeah. Fuck you. All right, go ahead. Keep going. I'm sorry.
But I was doing basically part-time, and I was away from home 200 days out of the year. And when I did get home, I was so sleep deprived because you just don't have time to lay down. My family loves me, and they appreciate me, and they want all my energy to go into them. So that was my decision at the end of the day. It's like, hey, girls, love what you're doing. I'm going to try and take all my momentum and push you guys as far as I can. Fly, little birds. Fly. I'm going fucking home. So this is what kind of triggered everything at the beginning.
Yeah, well, that's where I was going with all of that. That's the first part that I saw, and then a bunch of people. But the point is, this fucking douchebag. Okay, and by the way, remind me never to compliment anybody. You see what happens whenever I compliment somebody? Then invariably they do or say something really stupid. Remember, I liked Mance Warner until he worked with the Invisible Man.
And you were very complimentary about Ronda Rousey. She had that debut at WrestleMania, maybe the greatest debut anyone's ever had.
Yes.
On a big stage, yeah.
Yes. But apparently now she thinks that she did it, I guess, that now that she came with her stardom and her knowledge and her fucking momentum and pushed all the girls to stardom or whatever. Here's the thing, darling. Let me smarten you up to the wrestling business because apparently nobody else has. You fucking ungrateful twat. You were a star in your world, and that world closely translates to professional wrestling. It always has. Boxing and now mixed martial arts and fighting and wrestling. You can become a box office attraction in wrestling if you've been good in another sport, and as Brock Lesnar showed, vice versa. Here's the problem, though. You didn't do it by yourself. Triple H laid that fucking match out specifically because he wanted you to get over. Kurt Angle was her partner, right? Not only one of the quickest learners in the history of fucking wrestling, but also a fucking guy who was farther above Ronda Rousey in the shoot fighting world than she achieved in hers, to be quite honest. An Olympic gold medalist is about as far as you can fucking get. And Ronda Rousey performed her part admirably. And she did have a good persona, and I loved the game face when she walked out and did her deal, and she treated the business seriously when she was in the fucking ring. But apparently now, and I should have known something was wrong when she's the one that had the nervous breakdown twice when she lost 2 fucking MMA fights, right? Broke down crying and basically quit the business there because she lost twice. So she's a mental case. But now we found out, it was just so hard. It was just so hard. I was on the road 200 nights a year, making 7 figures. I don't know exactly what her contract was, what her pay was for the fucking year. It's been reported at $1.5 million someplace. But the point is, I know the WWE, if anybody thinks Ronda Rousey didn't make over $1 million, you're fucking insane. And 200 days a year, my fucking asshole bleeds for you, darling. My asshole bleeds for you. Try working 100 days in a row for Bill Watts for $2,000 a week instead of 200 grand a fucking month or whatever the fuck your pay works out to. And driving up and down the roads in fucking Louisiana. You've insulted every single person that ever got into wrestling business that didn't come in given a 6-figure contract by the WWF and their fucking efforts and diminished that. You whine and you gripe and your pussy needs powdered because you were on the road 200 days a year. Meh. You have no more respect and you gained no more respect for the business than to come out and now that you're done with it, obviously, calling it fake fights and playing with your friends. You were just enjoying yourself for a couple $1 million a year or whatever, while Vince flew you around the fucking country and pampered you. Everybody who will say, well, I take up for her. She was fighting for real. Okay, yeah, she fought for real. And due to the fact that she beat everybody so quickly, 1 minute at a time, every several months or whatever. But I don't remember Danny Hodge or Jack Briscoe or fucking any of the noted shooters that have crossed over and had successful wrestling careers also calling it fake fights to the people. They never called it fake fights to the boys. It's not a term that any of them used because they had respect for what they were doing and the people that were helping them do it. So I don't know why does she think the fans are so ungrateful? Why?
Well, I think the fans towards the end of her run may have not been reacting the way that she had wanted them to.
Was she still making the same amount of money?
She was certainly making, as a downside guarantee, the same amount of money, yes.
What is she did they turn her heel or did she turn herself heel? Because remember, every time she gets in a situation where people like her, she was a babyface in MMA and then she mouthed off about them and turned heel there too, didn't she?
That is a way of explaining what happened to her in MMA, yeah.
Once she quit the business, she started mouthing off about the people and the whole experience.
And a lot of the girls that fought her, that lost in those short matches, I remember Misha Tate, it seemed that it wasn't just, I lost to a better person, it was, I lost to someone I really don't like. It seemed like there was a lot of animosity between her and every single girl she fought.
Well, now we apparently are figuring out why. So anyway, fuck you and your fucking fake fights and you're playing with your friends, you pampered, overpaid fucking douchebag. And I sincerely hope that your family supports you because if you ever do, and I'm sure Vince would take her back because he'll take any fucking cunt back, male or female, that fucking puts the mouth on him, as Dennis Corluzzo would say. But I hope your family supports you because the only popularity contest that you're going to be winning from now on for the rest of your life, you dumb fucking twat, is contests that only your immediate family votes in because the wrestling fans now are going to treat you like the fucking virus. After those comments, you fucking pampered twat.
We have a response from Ronda Rousey.
Oh, what? Okay, already?
I guess
Is this live?
I guess she somewhat anticipated what she would hear from you, but she'd been hearing it from other people.
I did tweet basically the same thing today. Maybe she saw that. I don't know.
This is directed, I guess, at everyone using the hashtag on Twitter, #KayfabeKiller. Anyone who was outraged by me calling pro wrestling fake fights for fun has never been in a real fight. While you all are tiptoeing around bruising some pro wrestlers' huge soft egos, no one is thinking about all the real fighters you're insulting when pretending pro wrestling is somehow on the same level of realism. Yes, I understand. Wrestling 300 days a year for years on end is incredibly tough on the body and a difficult profession. But do you know what would happen if you got into 300 real fights in a year? You would be dead.
That's apparently exactly the same thing that she's going to be after, if she ever gets back in a fucking ring again with any of these girls that have any goddamn pride and self-respect. Oops, you moved. That's what I sincerely hope she doesn't ever plan to do this ever again. Because some girl somewhere is going to have more fucking self-respect for themselves, for the business, and just whatever the fuck, than even if she makes it look like a real good fucking, oh golly, potato, Ronda Rousey's going to get her shit fucking kicked in.
Well, on that topic, funny enough, Nia Jax has recently been, I guess, taking on the role as a leader with the women in the WWE. And there's a couple of things here I've noticed, and they relate to this, so let's play this. This is some short audio, Jim. I guess because everyone is home and they have downtime, many of the WWE women's wrestlers got on, I think this may be Twitch. I'm not exactly sure, but there's a video stream with several of their faces just sitting at home on their couches, having girl talk. Here's Nia Jax. This came out right around the same time of this Ronda Rousey thing. And people were able to figure out that they think she was talking about Ronda Rousey based on the timing of the story. The timing of the story takes place, and the person she's talking about, which is Alexa Bliss. Let me play this for you, get your thoughts on this, and then we have a few more things about this.
That, speaking of Natty saying a backbone, I remember back when, I'm not going to mention any names, but Lexi, other than Lexi's name, she's not on right now. Other than Lexi's name. But when Lexi was in, she was working at an angle, and she was continuously getting hurt in a certain angle with somebody. And I remember her not saying anything, specifically because she wanted to be a team player. Like, she was so nervous. She wanted to be a team player. She didn't want to be somebody who oh, I can't do this. But me personally, from the outside looking in, I was so angry. I was like, no. I was like, she cannot do this anymore. I personally would not allow her to get back in the ring to get hurt again. Yeah. I had to go to the people, to the higher ups, and I had to put down, a stern foot and said, listen, Lexi is 5'0", 100 pounds, getting thrown around like a little rag doll and injured every night. I was like, put me in. I'm a 6 foot, 300 pound bitch. You can handle it. So I understand, there's a certain thing of being quiet and taking it and being like, no, I want to be a team player. And then there's another side where it's like, shit, dude, I can't allow to see one of my good friends, not only my good friends, but my coworker who I want to be here in 5 years so I can continue to work her. Right. Getting hurt. I need to stand up and freaking be there for her and make sure that, she's going to be her livelihood's going to be okay when she's done here.
Well, there it is, Nia Jax, and people on the internet sleuths have figured out that she was referring Sleuths have figured out that she was talking about Ronda Rousey apparently injuring Alexa Bliss while working with her.
Well, I'll tell you, Nia Jax would be a match I'd like to see with Miss Rousey.
Well, Nia Jax went on Twitter.
Oh, okay, there's more.
I can't wait for Ronda to one day return to WWE. Even if WWE orders me to make Ronda look good in the ring, which is the only way for Ronda to look good in the ring with me, I'll risk my job to go down in history as the one from this biz that knocked her the fuck out. Hashtag test me, bitch.
Now, Nia Jax is related, is she not, to the Samoan family?
I believe, and I'm likely wrong with this. I think she may be a cousin to The Rock.
Well, if she's somehow Samoan, Ronda Rousey's fucked. Well, it ain't going to happen. If she wouldn't have said that shit if she ever thought she would do this again. So she just needs to go back home to her farm and fucking. Possibly she's one of those people that
plow the fields and farm.
Plow the fields and farm and herd. Yeah. Fuck. You know what? Are we finished with this, by the way?
when you hear that from Ronda Rousey, when you hear from that Nia Jax, that clip of her talking about stepping up for Alexa Bliss, what do you think of that, about that aspect of it?
Well, I can see why they didn't want to put Ronda Rousey in with Nia Jax, because they were trying to get Rousey over, and she would not be able to do all of her shit and throw Nia Jax around like a rag doll and etc. But why? I've seen that Alexa Bliss, and she's a gorgeous girl, but she is 5 foot nothing and doesn't weigh 100 pounds or whatever the fuck. And why? And she looks the furthest thing from physically intimidating. So why that they put her in with Ronda Rousey, I have no fucking idea, because they should have known. Jesus Christ, a little lady like that cannot be fucking thrown around. She's obviously, Alexa Bliss, I don't think has ever fought in a cage. I don't think she's been in any contact sports. She might have been a cheerleader, whatever the fuck. I would have picked one of the larger, more physically equipped ladies to work with Ronda Rousey, especially if she was that fucking dangerous.
Well, I guess to put a bow on this, I've noticed that there's another tweet from Ronda Rousey. This is from 14 hours ago. Good night, #rowdy ones and jabroni marks without a life that don't know it'll work when you work a work and work yourself into a shoot, marks. And with that, there's a video of 5 seconds in length of her beating up a Hulk Hogan Wrestling Buddies doll.
Yeah, I think is the one that I saw that on Twitter, and I tweeted back to her, but I don't know whether she sees it, and I don't care. But having another one of her fake matches, and obviously drunk at the time, to shoot to mark. And I love when people get in the business just long enough to fucking learn a couple of words, and then they don't even know what the words. It's sort of like shit stain. They don't know what the words mean, but they start using them. Do you know he completely changed the fucking meaning of swerve?
What do you mean?
Shit stain, because of the swerve, bro. The thing that now people joke about, a swerve has come to mean some ridiculous, ludicrous, fucking shocking thing that happens out of nowhere in a fucking wrestling match that you don't expect, because he didn't understand what a swerve was. When you swerve somebody, you're not drawing them in for a big reveal like at Perry Mason at the end. You're conning them. You're swerving them. You're influencing their thinking, or you're telling them shit that's not true to wind them up to do something where you get the better of it. But there's at the end of it, it's not suddenly, well, wait a minute, I committed murder. No, it's just you've taken their money and you're gone. And they're like, what the fuck? That's a swerve. It's a con. It's a fucking, it's a game. You're swerving somebody's head to do what the fuck you want them to do. But somehow it's become the swerve is suddenly Triple H emerged from underneath the ring and hit him with a sledgehammer. That didn't have anything to do with what the fuck was going on. Or suddenly the guy's fucking wife suddenly divorced him and married his next door neighbor out of nowhere. That's no. The swerve is the whole fucking, is the con job. It's the bunko scheme. Nobody knows that?
I think it's kind of now been accepted to be what he calls a swerve, because that's the way it's been used for, 20 years?
I guess, but it should be called something stupid that doesn't make sense happening out of nowhere. Remember when they would have guys turn on their friend or their partner or whoever it may be they were turning on in the finish of the match and join the other fucking side, but all during the match, that guy that was going to turn on his partner or his friend and join this other group, this group of heels or whatever, this guy has been beating the shit out of the fucking heels all through the fucking match. And then suddenly He stops beating on him and starts beating him on the other guy. But it was planned all along. When would you plan for somebody to beat the shit out of you for no reason when if he's on your side, you could just jump the fucking guy to begin with? And that's because it doesn't make any sense for a guy who's going to turn and join someone to have been physically pummeling the person he's going to join just moments before. And this is how smart that Jerry Jarrett, Jerry Lawler, and Jackie Fargo were. The way they set up the fucking angle in 74 where Lawler, ran to the world title and sold all those fucking tickets, and they averaged 8,000 people a week and set an attendance record and sold out 7 times in the summer and all that stuff. Lawler's a heel. He set records with Jim White as his partner as a tag team. Everybody knew that Fargo was the king, but that of Memphis, but that the Fargo was the top guy, but that he had something to do with getting Lawler involved in wrestling because they were all around in that time. So anyway, Lawler switches babyface for just 6 weeks. Long enough against the Masked Infernos, right, with their manager, J.C. Dykes. Long enough to have a couple weeks of tag team matches with Eddie Marlin as a partner. And then I think he had 1 week with Tojo as a partner. And then finally he asked Jackie Fargo to be his partner to get even with the evil Masked Infernos. And by this point, Fargo agrees to it. And then, of course, they're telling a story that Lawler's idol was Fargo, and Fargo helped get him into business and blah, blah, blah. And they have the match, and Fargo starts, and boom, 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 he does his shit, and then the Infernos fucking get him down, and they beat the shit out of him. And to get the heat on him, and finally, he does something, he reaches the corner, and he tags Lawler, and Lawler jumps into the ring with his fist clenched and confronts both the Infernos, who back up. And then Lawler turns around and starts kicking a shit out of Fargo. Holy shit. And the people fucking go out of their minds. And the Infernos, the heels, they don't get involved. They just sit up on the top turnbuckles on the fucking far side of the ring and watch Jerry Lawler beat the shit out of Jackie Fargo and break his ribs. And they fucking had to help Fargo out of the fucking ring. And Lawler's a heel again. He didn't even plan it with the Infernos. They didn't know anything about it. It was all a sucker job to get Fargo to partner with him and team up with him so that he could get Fargo. And now that he's put Fargo out, he's the king of Memphis. He's the number one guy. And they start bringing in people for him to defend the Southern title against. And from that point forward, they did nothing but business all year. And when Fargo came back just to be in Ricky Gibson's corner against Lawler, they sold out. Then they sold out the next week. Then they sold out for a tag match. Then they sold out the first time Fargo got him in a single match. But if it had been modern day wrestling, they would have had a normal match for 20 minutes. And Lawler would have been kicking the shit out of the fucking Infernos and helping Jackie out. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, he would have decided to turn on him. And the people would have gone, what the fuck? That doesn't make any sense. Why couldn't he have just got him when he could have get him? Or get him when he could have got him? Or one of those things.
All right.
Yeah.
Dusty and Ole in the cage.
Dusty and Ole in the cage.
Happened right away.
The same thing. It was 6 years later, it still worked. And it worked because he had not helped him to begin with. But anyway, you know what just grinds my gears? What grinds my gears is watching all this old classic wrestling and then getting up off the couch and being all sore, having sore muscles and aches and pains from when I did all this fucking classic old-time wrestling. Well, we know what the cure is, and we've told the Cult of Cornette members, Ohmax, the cryofreeze, is what you need. We've been talking about this for months, Brian. You love it. I love it. Stacy loves it. Stacy's mother has had a hip and knee replacement, loves it. But I actually we've read testimonials from the Cult of Cornette members, a few of them, and including for artists from Georgia. And I've got a follow-up email from artists that we read, 6 weeks ago. You remember that artists had an injury. I think it was a torn Achilles tendon that didn't ever heal properly. and he was having a hard time getting around, and then he had a son, and he, was having a hard time playing with his baby until he tried the roll-on Ohmax cryofreeze, and that helped him, and he was getting around better. Well, he's followed up on this. Greetings, Mr. Cornette. I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to read my original email and send you a follow-up. I took your advice and tried the Ohmax recovery cream. That stuff's good, too. It's like a nice cream lotion. Doesn't stink, not fucking greasy, etc., but it works. And the rapid relief drops he tried also. And I must say you were exactly right. The cream goes on easy, is perfect for helping ease my soreness after a bout of hopping around the house with my son and his mom. Also, the drops keep my pain at a minimum throughout the day, and the cinnamon flavor makes it a pleasant taste as well. I can't thank you and the great one enough. Well, you had a part in it too, I guess. For all that you guys do in searching for the perfect sponsors to placate the various needs of your listeners. I'm sure I'm not the only one who appreciates this level of attentiveness and care, and the results for me personally have been amazing. And it's all because of the cryofreeze, I'm telling you. You don't want to go to the doctor these days just to go to the chiropractor or a masseuse or just even an unnecessary trip to your family doctor, because you're going to the location where all the germs are. So if you're sitting at home and you're sore, arthritis, backaches, muscle soreness, joint pain, and you want to try a drug-free solution, then try what we've been talking about. The cryofreeze CBD pain relief roll-on is all natural, topical. It's a pain reliever that instantly ices out the pain with a 1-2 punch of super cold menthol and hemp CBD. That's what I'm trying to say, folks. Anyway, the stuff works. The listeners think it works. I like it for my back and my hip. I wish I could get to make my headaches go away, but I watch too much modern wrestling. But anyway, Ohmax is going to give you guys 20% off a 1-month supply of cryofreeze plus free shipping. And you also get 20% off any product site-wide. Just go to Ohmax. That's OMAX Health, HEALTH.com today and enter the code DRIVE. OhmaxHealth.com and enter the code DRIVE. You get 20% off cryofreeze site-wide and free shipping. And you know what cryofreeze means? I didn't know this until I read it actually on the thing they sent out. Do you know what cryofreeze means?
I don't.
Cold therapy. I've always heard of like a cryogenic chamber when they talked about freezing Michael Jackson, right? So he could come back and get it right next time. I don't know what the fuck they're, whatever, but cryofreeze means cold therapy. The treatment exposes the body to cold temperatures in order to numb and reduce pain and inflammation, baby. So it's therapy and it's cold. That's why it's cold when you put it on and it cools you and makes you feel better.
All right.
So why do they have all that fucking greasy, icy hot stuff? This like it heats you up and it's greasy and it stinks. And, the guys in the 90s were spraying that shit on themselves. What the fuck was it? There was some kind of bodybuilding stuff that you would spray, and it makes your blood vessels swell up or whatever, and it makes your skin kind of red and, like you're exerting yourself, and it looks good on camera or whatever. But some of the guys, I think Road Dogg was one of them, you can be allergic to that shit. It make you fucking break out, so they had to ban it, because every time somebody would get a hold on him, he'd fucking break out all over his fucking body. Nasty smelling shit, too. It would fucking blow your fucking nostrils out when you would walk through the gorilla position, all the guys using that shit.
Well, that
this
won't
is
happen.
much better.
That won't happen with Ohmax.
Not with Ohmax cryofreeze, because it don't stink and it works. And it is a soothing smell. You got the menthol there, but it's not like it's hypoallergenic, I would imagine. You're not allergic to this shit. Anyway, Ohmax, cryofreeze, cold therapy. You have any questions?
We have a lot of questions, and there have been a lot of popular topics that many questions have been sent in about in the last week. Let me ask you one right here. For everyone that sent in this question, what are your thoughts on Vince McMahon shutting down the XFL?
God damn. That thing's snake bit, isn't it? Poor, I feel bad for him on it because actually this time it was halfway getting ratings, and also they don't expect the ratings of 20 years ago, so it was better. And he's gone to all this trouble, and he's much richer now than he was then. So what did he cash out? About $300 million in fucking stock to fund this thing?
Money to burn.
I wonder how much money this is going to lose him. I mean, obviously you can deduct lots of things off your taxes, and the TV network paid some money, but I wonder if anybody's ever going to figure out how much this cost him to do a fucking, quarter of a season of football?
Yeah, and they were prepping for it for 2 years?
I wonder if somebody ought to fucking, like that time that George Scott signed the Iron Sheik when Turner bought Crockett out and took over and made it WCW. George Scott brings the Iron Sheik in, signs him to a $100,000 a year contract. And of course, within 8 weeks, and this was 1989, right? They found out that Sheik was, in ring was not going to be the Sheik's future. It was bloody awful. And so they sent him home when they fired George Scott. And then they let him sit home so long they forgot about him, and his contract rolled over the next year. And they fucking had to pay him for another year. So they brought him to TV a couple of times to get some use out of him, thinking if they just jobbed him in like a couple minutes that he would get mad and quit. But he's, no, fuck it, you're paying me $100,000 a year. He did all the jobs, and they were so rotten that they sent him back home and paid him for another fucking year. The point is, we figured out that Sheik that one year made like literally fucking $30,000 a match. So I wonder if somebody can do the math, how many XFL football games were actually played and how much they in total cost Vince McMahon each. What would it be, like fucking $22 million per game it cost him?
Now they've laid everyone off, and they've announced that, I guess, operations are suspended at least through the 2021 season. Do you think there's any way he tries to do this again for 2022?
Oh, I'm sure that he will, and I'm sure that they got 2 years to talk him out of it. And that's what they're going to be doing, I would imagine, at this point. But at least this time it was actually halfway becoming a thing that people would watch, I guess, from what I heard, right? Unlike the first time, which was a giant bomb. And now and a fucking worldwide goddamn plague comes up.
Apparently it was a better presentation. However, I believe the ratings were starting to nosedive.
Well, I heard that they were falling, but not nosediving. That they were just, they weren't going to be as good as they were at the fucking start, because once people have watched for curiosity's sake, but they were doing better, all things considered, this time around. He may have had a chance at it, is what I heard. It may have been a thing for a few years.
He may have had a chance.
Well, he don't now. Damn it. But, I don't know whether it's just I just wish Vince would please quit trying to do things outside the wrestling business, because it never works. And it just can you imagine how much money the company would be worth and how much they could have paid the wrestlers over the last 20 years if they hadn't had a restaurant in Times Square, if they hadn't had a football league the first time, if they hadn't started a movie studio, if they hadn't, what's the big money loser that I'm leaving off that I can't remember, that they lost some money on in an outside venture?
I think the XFL the first time was the big one.
Well, but I mean, there's been several. And they didn't lose very much with the world bodybuilding thing. But the fucking restaurant to me was goddamn, because I was up there when they had the fucking thing part of the time. And, of course, that's the first thing I think of when I think of fine dining is the World Wrestling Federation. They go hand in hand. It was a big deal to Vince to have a business in Times Square. If he'd had that restaurant in Dallas, he wouldn't have had the restaurant in Dallas because he wouldn't have give a fuck. Or Chicago or Detroit or wherever. He wanted a big, like the Coke store in Times Square. He wanted a business in Times Square. And I think that cost them, what was it, $35 million in the end? Oh, I know what it was. The casino.
Oh, the Debbie Reynolds.
I was there when they bought that too. He said, well, we own a casino, pal. What? The Debbie Reynolds Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas that apparently was in disrepair and fucking malnourished and had lost money or whatever was closed down. They bought it and it was gonna be WWE Las Vegas Casino and fucking who knows what the fuck. And that was a grand plan that they spent all this time talking about. And of course, if I want to win some money, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to the WWF casino where everything they do is a work. I'm supposed to believe the fucking slot machines. But that cost millions of dollars.
Vince just can't accept that the one thing he's good at is professional wrestling.
Yes.
Everything else he's ever done. He did a Sugar Ray Leonard fight in like 89, 88 or 89. And that bombed. Like everything he does outside of wrestling.
Wait a minute. I was too young to even know about this or even know about the connection, but I sure do remember wanting to see the fucking event. He actually promoted the fucking Snake River Canyon jump by Evel Knievel in 74 right. On fucking pay-per-view or closed circuit. There was no pay-per-view, closed circuit TV. And of course, Evel Knievel's fucking gimmick fizzles out 10 feet from the fucking one rim of the canyon that he's taken off from, and he just went peep, and there's the parachute comes out, and boom, and it was done. So that was a big popcorn fart too, and that was when you attain the status as, like it or not, we're not talking quality wise, but in terms of financial results, when you're the best in the world at what you do in the biggest company, why do you constantly? Because that's not easy to do, and it's got to be a combination of hard work, skill, and luck. Why do you consistently try to spend all the money that you've made doing that in shit that every time bites you in the ass? I do not understand it. What was that question?
The XFL.
Well, fuck them. How about the X Football League? That's what they ought to call it now. Because that's what it is, an ex-football league.
Did Vince watch football ever when you were at his house writing?
Well, no, he's not going to watch football on a fucking Wednesday afternoon, first of all. But I don't know that he was a fan of anything to follow it on a regular basis. I'm pretty sure he had very little time to watch any kind of television. But he did play football in military school in North Carolina. And the reason that I heard that he wanted to start the XFL was that he thought, well, the NFL rules are for pussies now. and blah, blah, blah. We need to open the game up a little bit. And so he knew the concept of football. I don't know if he watched from start to finish, 2 football games per year, but he knew the concept of football and thought he could do with football what they had done with wrestling.
Well, another question that many people have sent in over the past week, Jim. What are your thoughts on the formerly known as the Revival? I guess now they're known as just FTR, getting their release from WWE and getting new names.
Well, they picked the names, so that's a plus. I hate the whole idea of people leaving and having to change their names because fuck, I get confused on what to call guys sometimes. This is what they've been wanting. They turned down every contract offer they just weren't happy with how they were being used and how they were being portrayed. And I can identify with that. And especially, I don't think either one of these guys are high livers and, I don't think any of them are driving fucking Rolls Royces. So they've been there a few years and probably made some pretty good money, all things considered, and are not in a financial position where they have to do shit they don't want to do now. And they want to go out and prove themselves somewhere, wherever that somewhere may be. I'd love to see them go into AEW and just beat the shit out of the fucking Young Bucks, kick them in the fucking balls and leave them laying in a fucking heap. And then work with a real tag team that they can fucking shine with. But unfortunately, they probably still have to work with the Young Bucks. But, they're so good, and we've reviewed their matches. And you can't even I can't find things to nitpick about. because you can tell that not only were they dedicated to being the best at what they did, but also they were fans at first and they understood it and they knew what it was supposed to look like. And they know how matches are supposed to ebb and flow, and they know what's stupid and unrealistic and what is not. And you've got to be not only talented, but you've got to be a fan of something to get it that good. And if you're a fan that strong, a fan of wrestling as well as that good, the last thing you want to do is be stuck in the middle of the WWE where it's New Day throwing out pancakes or whatever, and tag teams are middle card at best, and they don't get a chance to show what they can fucking do or have serious matches, and it's a goddamn dog and pony show. That's the last place you want to be, even for fucking money. Because I've in the past, I've made money and been miserable, and I've made no money and been happy. There's periods of times where I've fucking made money and been happy, but those are very fucking few and far between. Actually, mostly because I'm never happy with anything. But so I understand why they wanted to go somewhere. I wish there was the field of tag teams that they deserve to be able to work with out there. Because even if you buy the fucking, bullshit on the Young Bucks that they can have good logical matches when they want to, if they would shut up and listen to the Revival athletically, they could have a great tag team match, but they still look like they do. They're physically unintimidating. They've done all the clown show shit, so it's hard to take them seriously. But the other tag teams there, what the fuck? They don't have, the great field of tag teams to work with that the teams in the 80s and 90s did, because there are, they've eliminated tag teams as being main event attractions, so the top talent don't want to be in a tag team. And they've also eliminated tag teams that travel from one place to another, mostly, because people's contracts end at different times. Fortunately, these guys were able to get out mostly at the same time. But, can you imagine if they had a Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, or a Midnight Express, or a Rock and Roll Express, or any of the Fantastics, any of the great teams, babyface or heel, to work with the shit that they can do? It would be incredible. But
I'm going to ask you something later on about WCW 1990, but I was thinking about it the other day. Just look at the tag team roster. Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, Steiner Brothers, Doom, Southern Boys come in. Hayes and Garvin will leave off this list for a sake, but the Road Warriors are still there the early part of the year as a big attraction. Nasty Boys come in at the end of the year. You just had so many tag teams in there. You had a tag team division. With AEW, it's Best Friends, Lucha Brothers, SCU, I guess Dark Order technically is the number one contenders, Young Bucks, and Omega and Hangman Page. And I bet you they would have a great match with Omega and Hangman Page. And I bet you they'd probably have good matches with the Young Bucks. It would be a different type of Young Bucks match, I would think. But after that, the Revival versus Best Friends, I don't need to see. SCU, I don't need to see. They need to bring in more tag teams. If they're going to sign the Revival, and I'm going to go under the assumption that they're going to sign FTR, I guess we'll call them right now, they should also try and bring in some other tag teams too.
The best match athletically, the best combination out of that whole bunch you just mentioned in a vacuum would be FTR and SCU. Either Kazarian and Daniels, Kazarian and Sky and Kazarian, any combination, because those guys are not only athletically gifted enough to do it, but veterans enough to know what's going on, and they look like adult men. But the way that SCU has been portrayed, obviously that wouldn't be your money match, but that could be the best wrestling match. And then once again, the Young Bucks athletically could do it if they shut up and do as they're fucking told, basically, in the ring by people who know more than they do, which would be FTR. But if they try to start doing their same old bullshit and the same little backflippy thing they do in every match, they have moves they do every single time. And I know people are going to say, oh, Flair went upside down all the time too. Well, number one, it was Ric Flair. And number two, goddamn, you didn't see Flair doing it on TV every week because he wasn't on national TV every week having a competitive match. But every time the fucking balding buck does that fucking vault over the rope, leg drop, and then backflips to the apron and then backflips out on the guy who just happens to be standing there. It's like the Lucha Brothers thing. When they do their finish and one guy hits the ropes, just runs and dives out the opposite side. There better be somebody there to catch you. Somehow there always is. You would think that their opponents would have that scouted after the 8th or 10th time they do it. And the guy would know not to be in that one specific place. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, past SCU for the talent involved. And
oh, you know what?
And the Young Bucks, if they shut up.
Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. I forgot about them.
Ooh, you know what? Once again, I think I'm starting to look at the big fucking dinosaur like a stiff. But if he shuts his mouth and opens his ears and did what he was told, they could have a tear the house down fucking match because they get to heat on that fucking Jungle Boy. That would be something. But I mean, if they put him in the ring with maybe they're going to get a no dork order clause in their contract. Maybe they've already anticipated this and said, okay, the one thing you got to put in the contract is we don't have to get in the ring with these fucking idiots. Because that would be the end of everybody right there.
I'll assume that when wrestling starts back up, they're not going to be going to Ring of Honor. But what do you think about FTR versus the Briscoes?
I think that would be tremendous because the Briscoes, nobody works like the Briscoes. And I don't know how they've been able to do it at that level, that hard for so long, without killing themselves. But I think they would have a brilliant fucking match. And then just because the Briscoes have the personality and all their shit's over because it's individual to them. But at the same time, they know how to work. And also, if they're in the ring with somebody they want to listen to, they know how to listen. And you don't have fucking issues with them. I think that would be a tremendous match. When wrestling starts back up, I will say this, because I didn't get my 5th decade on Bobby Fulton's event. I wouldn't do it in AEW, but if the Revival was doing somewhere within a reasonable distance from Louisville, an independent event, I'd love to manage them once just to do it. And it has to be after the goddamn the vaccine comes out or whatever, puts an end to all this. But I would do that once. I would return from retirement as a manager one time just to do that.
Naturally, we get a lot of questions asking, will Jim Cornette manage the Revival? Will Jim Cornette go to AEW with the Revival? What I think a lot of people are missing is, I'm going to manage the Revival, not you.
Wait a minute. Is this a swerve?
It's a swerve!
It's a swerve!
Happened midway through the show.
I tell you what, you be the Revival's on-location manager, and I'll be their spiritual advisor from behind the scenes.
Ah, you're King Curtis.
There you go.
And I'm the day-to-day manager. Okay, that works.
And the spirit of Abu Dhabi will come down.
Well, I mentioned before that I wanted to ask you a question about 1990 WCW, and I have some audio to play here with it. I found this fascinating. Just this past week on John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now, which is a show where we review the classic episodes of Pro Wrestling Spotlight from 30 years ago. We're up to February 4th, 1990. So this is a week before the Clash of Champions where Sting gets hurt. This is a week before Mike Tyson gets knocked out by Buster Douglas, which throws WWE's plans. A lot of people forget they got a lot of success out of Tyson in 1998. They tried to bring him in 1990 to be a guest referee.
Yes.
And they were trying to stir up publicity then. So there's a lot of things happening. It's a real news-centric episode.
And then all of a sudden, Tyson gets knocked out, and they're like, well, who do we have? Buster Douglas? Fuck it. They just didn't do anything.
No, they brought Buster Douglas in to be guest referee.
That's right.
Match.
They did do Buster Douglas, and nobody gave a shit.
But the rumors were at the time that they were allegedly trying to do Randy Savage versus Mike Tyson at WrestleMania, which, if there was one guy in that company to put him in with, that was probably the guy, because he would script out the match and come up with something. With that said, John's guest, he has 2 guests on this week's show. It's a news-centric episode. Steve Beverly and Dave Meltzer. And the Steve Beverly stuff was really fascinating, and I want you to hear this, and I want to get your thoughts on it. We've talked so much about Tully Blanchard, and about Jim Herd blowing
Well,
it.
now, wait a minute. One second. Steve Beverly, just so everybody knows, was at the time was doing a newsletter called Matt Watch. But Steve goes back in local television years and also has taught television classes and, loves the TV classics and et cetera, and is still around out there. Hello, Steve. But anyway, so he was somewhat of a television expert and then a wrestling fan who would talk about wrestling as it applied to television, just so everybody knows who Steve was.
And unfortunately, he's kind of a forgotten guy nowadays. I mean, Dave Meltzer's still around, but Steve Beverly was right there with him on these episodes. And when you hear him, it'll stand out. In an era where anyone anoints themselves a wrestling journalist and they go on social media and because they watched wrestling, they're a wrestling journalist. This is a guy who sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He sounds like an adult. And you'll hear it here. But why I want to play this for you is two things. One is, I want you to hear this and tell me what you remember about the Tully Blanchard stuff. And two, how inside WCW was Steve Beverly? Because it sounds like he knew exactly what was about to happen. And I'm going to guess he was talking to either Jim Herd or someone high up. But let me play you this. It's a couple minutes. Tell me your thoughts after we play this.
There are other rumors that I've heard this week regarding the return of Tully Blanchard to the NWA. Now, have you heard anything about that?
Well, I know that there have been talks. I know Blanchard was in the office as late as another day this week. He was in the office at the Atlanta office of Jim Herd in the NWA on week before last, and on Thursday of that week, Blanchard and his agent, I understand, were tossed out of Herd's office because they were making what the company felt were unreasonable demands. But that negotiations were to be continuing this week, and I am really of the strong belief that Blanchard, unless they were not able to make out a money deal on this, will probably be on that show, but they would like to keep that a secret if they could.
Mm-hmm. Well, it won't be a secret here, obviously, but...
I'm really expecting Tully to show up, but if he's not there, it's simply because they were not able to work out a financial arrangement.
Now, as far as the Four Horsemen go, we feel here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight with what's been taking place on television, Ric Flair speaking to Woman, that there's going to be some type of turn, maybe even this coming Tuesday night. What are your opinions as far as that goes, the Four Horsemen turning on Sting, perhaps?
Well, let's put it this way. A lot of planted scenarios are out there right now because they like for people like myself and Dave Meltzer and others who do widely read newsletters to be wrong. And I don't mind if that happens because, I'm a fan still like everybody else, and I enjoy being surprised. But put it this way, I've always prefaced remarks like this by saying, people, don't take me for Jimmy the Greek because I sure don't want you going out to your neighborhood bookie on this. But my own belief is that you're going to see a turn of some kind. And I don't think, but what it is the case, I don't think it's going to happen when a lot of people think it's going to. I don't think it's going to happen in the cage. I would strongly suspect that it may happen well before that. The show. I don't think it's going to happen when the cage match itself begins.
You think it might happen before that, during the show Tuesday night?
Possibly. Particularly if Blanchard's there. Don't be surprised if it doesn't happen in an interview segment beforehand. That's pure guessing on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised at that. We'll see how my forecasting is on Tuesday night.
Great. Our co-host, Broadway Sonny Blaze, pro wrestler, wants to have a couple words with you, Steve.
Hi.
How you been, Steve?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Very well, thank you. I wanted to ask you, now, if the Four Horsemen injure Sting badly enough, will Luger take his place on the 25th?
What the fuck?
Yeah, sure, that would happen. But I don't think that's going to happen.
You don't see that happening?
Don't take that one to the bank. I think that match is going to be Flair versus Sting, no ifs, ands, or buts on February 25th. And the company is capable of doing anything to try to throw everybody off, but I am very strongly of the belief that it's going to be Flair Sting on the 25th.
Well, there it is, Steve Beverly, February 4th, 1990.
So wait a minute, Sonny Beach is calling the actual fucking...
Sonny Blaze.
Sonny Blaze, Sonny Beach, Sonny Blaze, calling what actually happened before we knew it was actually going to happen.
Yeah, that's the crazy part where, what if they injure Sting too bad? Will Luger take his place? But
holy God. But, okay, here's the thing with Steve Beverly. Yes, he was talking to a variety of people because here's the thing. Steve Beverly had a real television background. He'd worked in TV news. He taught or has taught television classes, I think, at Auburn. He knew how to speak the language. And he talked not only to Jim Herd, who, you know, talked to TV people, but also Joe Pedicino. Was obviously friends with Steve. So he was talking to people in the office. But here is the thing. If he's saying Tully had just been there and his agent, I assume, was his lawyer, I wrote the goddamn format for the Clash of Champions that they're talking about. I was under Ric Flair and Kevin Sullivan. It's not that I wrote the thing by myself. I'm the one who actually put pen to paper and wrote the format that we sent into the office to have typed up based on their direction, right? But I was on the creative team. Tully Blanchard was never going to be on that Clash of Champions. Not that I fucking remember. Not only that, but after I argued vociferously with Jim Herd about his decision not to bring Tully in when Arn came, or when Arn was coming because of the drug test failure in the WWF, he flat shut it fucking down, and that's the last time that I heard Tully Blanchard's word from his mouth. Tully, if Tully was back, and Flair was still the booker at that point, so if Tully was back and Flair knew, or Tully was coming back or talking about coming back, and Flair knew about it, he would have said something to me and Kevin. I don't remember anything about that ever being said. But at the same time, I'm wondering if Tully wasn't hot at Flair at that point and that's probably why he had his lawyer there, because they were probably trying to figure out a way to sue WCW if he couldn't get his fucking job that he was promised and the money that he was promised, because that's what knocked Tully out of mainstream wrestling. So that's very interesting. And but I can tell you for a flat fact that this is one of the things that Rick used to get hot about also. Me, Rick, and Kevin, even though we would have meetings with Jim Herd and Barnett and Jody Hamilton, and Jim Ross was in them, and one or two other people at some various points in time, in the office, me and Rick and Kevin would do the brunt of the actual details of what was going to go on the TV formats in the car going somewhere, or while we were traveling on the road and go to a hotel or something or other, right? But since back in the old, there was no email, what we would do is we would decide what we were going to do, and then I would write out the formats because I had the best handwriting and I was the junior member, so that's what the junior member does. I'd write them out, time them out, and fax them into the office where Janie Engel could type them up and distribute them at the taping, because none of us were typists, right? Somebody in the office was seeing those formats and was then blabbing about what they saw, because that's the only way that anybody would have known that Sting was going to be turned on by the Horsemen in the interview segment before the match that night, which was always the plan. And then the only reason that things went south in the match was Sting was supposed to come out and try to get into the cage to get at the Horsemen after they beat Gary Hart's group. And that was the finale of the Clash of Champions, was supposed to be Sting trying to get into the cage to get revenge against Flair, and Flair going, come on, and having the Horsemen there with him. When Doug Dillinger, head of security, former Charlotte police officer, and Crockett TV cameraman, Doug Dillinger, for a shoot, pulled Sting down off the cage, jerked him down. When he landed wrong on his fucking leg and tore his ACL. And that's why he was out for 6 months. And that's why it ended up being Luger. And that night, I went to Rick after we knew that Sting was fucked, because you can tell with an ACL injury, he ain't going to fucking work the pay-per-view in 2 weeks or whatever. I said, what are we going to do? He said, well, let me think about it overnight. We'll talk about it. We'll fly tomorrow because we were going to go from Corpus Christi to wherever the fuck. He said, we'll fly tomorrow to Dallas or wherever, and we'll talk about it because I was going to drive that night. So I said, fuck it. So the next morning when we got to the airport, he had already decided I'm switching Luger. I'm putting Luger in the spot. I'm going to switch him babyface, which was kind of a, if not a repeat of the angle, an homage to when Magnum TA got hurt in the car wreck and suddenly Nikita came out to defend his honor. There was elements of that in Rick's thinking, and also Luger was the only other guy that they would buy that made sense, and he knew that, you know, it was a make or break time because he had been booking this thing to be the big fucking, he was going to drop the title to Sting. He was going to do a big buy rate. Well, he didn't drop the title to Luger because it came out of nowhere and he had promised the title to Sting. It may have helped Luger at the time, but long term it would have thrown off what they wanted to do with Sting. But that was the chain of events of how that happened. So not only for Steve Beverly to know that it was going to take place beforehand, he had to have been told by somebody that saw one of the formats that we faxed into the office, which narrows it down quite a bit to a Joe Pedicino or a JR or Jim Hurd. Or it's really spooky that Sunny Blaze Beach, Sunny Days would have called that fucking bit at the end when that was never a plan until it actually became a shoot.
You know, another thing mentioned on this show was, what do you remember about, there was a big super show going to happen in Tokyo with All Japan and New Japan working together. And Ric Flair and Muta were both supposed to be on the show and they pulled out, which led to talks with Vince McMahon about doing something with the Japanese promotions. Do you remember why Ric Flair was pulled off that show?
If it's the one I'm thinking about and somebody that's, you know, better versed in this can clarify it or correct me if I'm wrong, but was that not the time that they informed Flair that he would be going to Japan, but it would be covered as part of his WCW guarantee?
Oh, you know what? That may be it. Yeah.
Because basically you got a guy who's been going to Japan to defend the NWA title and getting these big payoffs from Giant Baba for fucking however long, right? And in addition to whatever he made in this country. And all of a sudden, WCW says, oh, yeah, you're going to go to Japan. You're going to be the main event in the big show in the Tokyo Dome or wherever the fuck it was, but we're not paying you extra. That's part of your contract. That happened at least once. Whether it was this specific time, I cannot say.
I think it would have been this specific time because a year later it was where he had the match with Fujinami in Tokyo, so it wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, well, there, and see, that makes sense because it was earlier in the run that they owned WCW and they didn't know how the fucking business worked. And they didn't know how Flair worked. And there was all kinds of issues at that time anyway. And then right after the Clash of Champions and right before the pay-per-view, was it not? No, it was right after the pay. When did he quit as booker?
After the pay-per-view, I believe.
Right after the pay-per-view. Anyway, it was a mess at that point in time, but very interesting.
You can hear more classic wrestling news, pwspod.com, or look for John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
You know something I've realized, Brian? If back in 1990, when I was in WCW, if I had had a service like that we promote to the followers of the Cult of Cornette here on the program, I could have tolerated Jim Hurd. Betterhelp. If we had had Betterhelp back then, because I was on the road all the time, I couldn't make an appointment and go into a therapist's office and sit down and tell them, I want to choke this guy. He's running off all the top talent. He's tanked the house shows. He's killed the TV ratings. He won't get his finger out of the booking. I could have had somewhere to vent besides to Ric Flair and Kevin Sullivan and Jim Ross and everybody else in the company. But they could maybe have helped me because BetterHelp has helped so many of the Cult of Cornette members, so many of the folks in the audience, and so many people around the world. It's not a crisis line. It's a professional counseling line done securely, either by phone or video chat as they do now. They're committed to helping affordable more than traditional offline counseling. They're trying to help you with affordable counseling that's accessible, is the word I'm trying to get, where if you live out in the sticks, or if you live in a place where maybe the only counselor available is somebody you know and you don't want to talk to them. Now, this is completely professional, but totally anonymous. 24 hours a day, I believe. But Betterhelp.com has helped a bunch of the listeners that we've read some testimonials, and you can save money at the same time. If you go to BetterHelp, that's HELP, betterhelp.com/drive, you get 10% off your first month of services. How can we beat that, Brian?
We can't.
We can't. So we're not going to try. But no, the folks at BetterHelp will help you, especially if you're cooped up in a house and you can't go anywhere. We talk about not having a therapist to go to. You might have a therapist, but you can't go there. So this way you can do it all from your quarantine in your own home. BetterHelp.com/drive. And join the over 800,000 people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. Such as me. I'm an experienced professional. I can help you, but I just don't have time. They do. They got more people.
All right. Well, we got some questions from our people.
Well, we got some answers.
Well, I hope we do. Another popular one that's been sent in. A lot of these have been sent in by a lot of different people, so I'm trying to combine them so I don't exclude anyone, but also don't include anyone, I guess, now that I think about it. But what are your thoughts, Jim, about NXT defeating AEW in the ratings, apparently, this past week?
Well, it was what, like 500 people, according to their, I mean, obviously the ratings are still only learned estimates, and that's not an exact number. They'd have to come to your house and peek through the window of every house in America to find out what exactly everybody was doing. But the difference in the numbers was only like 500 people or whatever. The ratings are going to get screwy depending on, you know, what segment of people wants to watch their empty arena, boring wrestling and or their, you know, fucking package show. And now they say Vince is going to try to do live TV every week because he just won't. I bet he's mad over the XFL and Roman Reigns. He's like, fuck it. We'll send all the boys out on the road every week.
Well, that's going to be our next question, just so you know.
Well, it all ties in together. I wouldn't take any victories or defeats in the ratings that seriously over the next little while because these are not normal times nor normal shows. But, you know, if anything, putting that fucking four-finger stinker of an abortion of a tag team match with Olivier and his buddy from Japan against the two fucking, how I can't knock Trent, Hatchet Head and his partner Trent, the best friends, that probably didn't help their numbers any because they weren't even taking it seriously, so why should the people? They're thinking like, well, fuck, now I'm watching empty arena wrestling and they're just fucking jacking around. So fuck, I might as well watch the guys on the other channel who are taking it serious. That it could be as simple as that. I wouldn't read a bunch into either company winning for the next little while.
Another popular topic has been Vince McMahon's decision to apparently, as of recording here, go live once again with Raw, NXT, and SmackDown starting this Monday. What are your thoughts on Vince and his apparent desire to produce live wrestling shows again? I can't believe this is going to happen.
Well, but now somebody speculated, or at least promulgated the theory, that Vince doesn't want to give the networks any chance to void their contract by not producing a specified number of live events if they're specified to be live, even during a goddamn worldwide pandemic. That may be something he might, fuck, now, you know, I've lost the XFL. Now, if they're going to try to fuck us on the rights fees or whatever, but you would think the same thing would apply to All Elite Wrestling with TNT, and it may. I don't know whether that has anything to do with it or not, but elsewise, he's just a stubborn son of a bitch. Is he going to send the fucking WWE plane to everybody, to their house to get them? So that, you know, if he's got the full roster traveling and being exposed to a lot of people, you know, in the process of getting from one place to another, that I can't imagine they're excited about that. And wasn't all the talent told they were going to come to Florida and shoot several weeks of TV all in the same week and be done with it. So I guarantee you they're groaning over that.
You have seen that it is now confirmed that at least one WWE on-air talent has contracted the coronavirus, correct?
I have not seen that.
Yeah.
See, you just keep up on top of everything for me. Who was it? We don't know.
There are rumors, but I'm not going to jump with the rumors because I haven't heard anything that was confirmed. But WWE released a statement. A WWE employee has tested positive for COVID-19. That means maybe it's not a wrestler if it says employee, actually, now that I think about it. We believe this matter is low risk to WWE talent and staff, as the individual and a roommate became symptomatic in the days following exposure to two people working in acute health care on the evening of March 26th, after WWE's TV production on a closed set was already complete. The employee had no contact with anyone from WWE since being exposed to those two individuals, is doing well, and made a complete recovery.
Well, it sounds like a crew person.
It sounds like a crew person, but this is the risk. I mean, WWE wants to go live. They're going to be the only thing going live right now. Even Dana White got shut down. What happens if one of the wrestlers, or two of the wrestlers, or several people involved, what happens if someone over the age of 60 contracts this thing because Vince McMahon's doing this?
Well, Vince McMahon's over 60, but once again, he doesn't put illness over. They have the biggest library of recorded wrestling that has ever been assembled in the history of the known civilized world. And they can't find shit to show for the next month. Certainly they could show shit that would outrate All Elite Wrestling from their past. Wouldn't the fucking Raw that got an 8 rating 20 years ago at least get a fucking 3 now? You would think. I don't know.
Well, the other thing is about the contracts. I heard the same thing you just said, that there are provisions in there requiring a certain amount of live shows. Pretty much the majority. I think only a few are allowed to not be live, specifically the ones taped overseas or like a holiday one.
Yeah. But
there's a worldwide pandemic happening to the point where these stations can't even have all their employees in the offices.
I would think Jerry McDevitt would be able to call Fox and say, hey, don't monkey with we can't do live shows because the governors of the various fucking states that we were going to do all these live shows in have said, no, fuck you. So don't try to monkey with our fucking deal if that was even a concern. That's just something that was on the internet. So perhaps that is not even the case. And they're just trying to explain why Vince would insist on doing live TV every week in the middle of this, and that's trying to explain the way Vince McMahon's mind works, and that's not a good fucking road to try to go down. So maybe there is no problem with the networks, and maybe Vince just says, fuck it. We got the place all to ourselves. Nobody else is going to be doing this. We got to get the ratings back up. I don't fuck it. Who talked to him right before he made that announcement, or what news did he hear right before he made that decision? That's generally will play a big part on whatever Vince wants to do.
Did you see the statement they released to ESPN yesterday?
I did not. See, I was packing boxes yesterday.
We believe it is now more important than ever to provide people with a diversion from these hard times. We are producing content on a closed set with only essential personnel in attendance, following appropriate guidelines while taking additional precautions to ensure the health and wellness of our performers and staff. As a brand that has been woven into the fabric of society, WWE and its superstars bring families together and deliver a sense of hope, determination, and perseverance.
Oh, God damn it. Oh, fucking hell. I thought that Lanny Poffo was the only one limber enough to bend over and blow his own self. But apparently now we find out that whoever wrote that copy can do it as well. Woven into the fabric of society. Much like that fucking one little fucking irritating scratchy piece in a new pair of pants that you buy that's right in the crotch and drives you crazy.
WWE brings families together. Do they actually believe it? I mean, here's the question. Does Vince and Stephanie and that top tier actually believe this stuff, or do they just put this out there because they want that to be the public image of WWE? Do they?
Well, what do you think?
Things?
Well, no, Vince,
I don't know, actually.
Vince either comes up with it or hears somebody say it and likes it and decides that that is the way that they feel, and then from there on, they feel that way. Is the best way I can tell you. But just the,
you know what else is woven?
And it just it's what else is woven into
what
the
else is woven? Schools, jobs, money, baseball, the economy. But WWE, that's the one that has to.
Hey, I wonder how are the hookers doing? Have we?
It's
have
like
we heard about
'86.
That's what I'm saying. You know, and we've told that story when Bill Watts was first apprised that the economy in his territory had taken a nosedive was when Scott Muntz, his advanced promotional man, went to New Orleans. He called Watts. He said, Bill, we're in fucking deep shit. So what do you mean? He said, every escort service in New Orleans is closed. And Watts said, well, what the fuck? Get your pussy on your own time. No. If there's no escort services running in New Orleans, that means there's no money in New Orleans. And goddamn, when you know who won the pony, they were out of business about a year later because of that fucking the oil bust in those states and the economic downturn. But has anybody applied the hooker metric to this thing? If the hookers are out of business, we're all fucked.
By the way, that was the same response Bill Watts gave Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler when they said, where are the blowjobs? Hey, you guys get your own pussy.
Yeah. When they came down in 83, Watts, after they watched the TV, Watts said, well, what do you think, guys? And Jarrett said, where's the blowjobs? So what the fuck? Get your own fucking blowjob. No, you know, because Bill Watts had a crew of big badass motherfuckers that kicked ass, and the people believed his fucking wrestling. But he had all ugly, big, kick-ass fuckers, and he wasn't appealing to the girls. And once that he got Terry Taylor and the Rock and Roll Express, and Magnum was really cooking, then all of a sudden the crowds were 50, 60% girls, especially young girls, and there became the blowjobs. That was the fucking key. He had to get young, fucking good-looking baby faces. And then the action and the new finishes and et cetera. He had people watching the TV, and that enticed them to come to the buildings. We need to use the hooker metric on the pandemic.
Do you think it makes WWE look good or bad to the general public that they're deciding to do this right now?
Well, I don't know whether they care how they look to the general public. You would think they would want to look good, but they never do. If Vince is interviewed on TV by Bob Costas and he fucking flings his poo at Bob Costas, or some of the decisions they make are the things they do. But to their audience, I think they want to see us do programming. But, you know, my problem is not the clothes set there and whatever the fuck, but having guys from all over the country, bringing them all to Florida and shooting a bunch of shit over the course of a week to air for a while. Okay, that's acceptable risk, but you're going to fucking drag them back and forth from the house once a week now for the duration of this. That's a little pissy, in my opinion. And probably not only the talent doesn't like it, but people are going to go, they're going to think of that. They're not going to think of they're going to be on a closed set once they get there. They're going to be thinking, what the fuck? They're going to be going from Poughkeepsie to fucking Denver or wherever the fuck it is they're going.
Do you think, it's hard to really say this, but I was going to say, do you think there'll be talent like Roman Reigns who say, no, I won't do this? Or will everyone just try to go with the flow and make Vince happy?
Well, everybody will try to go with the flow and make Vince happy unless there's somebody that specifically had their spouse is high risk, or they've got kids that have health issues, or some person in their family that they have to be around. They might have to say something. But boy, Roman Reigns has been erased. So I don't understand how that's the only way that you could actually save a top babyface from scorn that the people know is not only going to make a large amount of money from a big match like WrestleMania, such as it was, or whatever the fuck. Roman Reigns has a get out of jail free card. He's got the pass. They could save him in their back pocket. because it's true. He had leukemia. He's got a compromised immune system. He's got kids, blah, blah, blah. So announce that and make sure every news outlet in the world repeats it. That's why he didn't have his match. That's why he's going to wait, because he's already had to take time off from wrestling once to fight the recurrence of this leukemia. How much more of a sympathetic fucking figure can this guy be? And then, so he will come back to wrestling when the pandemic is under control. And then he comes back as a fucking returning hero. This brave son of a gun sacrificed his career because of his family and his commitment to them and blah, blah, blah. And his compromised immune system prevented him from his big match. So now he's going to get a bigger match and sell that. It's not that fucking hard. Instead, they wouldn't even acknowledge what happened and why he wasn't there. It was exactly the opposite way of what you'd think anybody would go to make a guy like that seem like a big baby face.
Well, let's get some more questions here, Jim. This one was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Samuel Otley. Did Shawn Michaels wear insoles in his boots to boost his height? And how tall do you think he is naturally?
I don't think he did. I don't think it would have helped much. He's about the same height as me, 6 feet, 6'1", maybe. He's thin. He's wiry, as the Fife family used to say. He's not any shorter than me, and he's not that much taller, so somewhere around there. I don't think he wore wearing lifts in your boots also throws your fucking balance off. So only like John Studd wore them, but John Studd didn't need a lot of fucking balance. He didn't go off his fucking feet. But I don't see what lifts would have done for Shawn Michaels.
What guys did wear lifts that you know of?
God, I'm trying to, and John Studd's a surprise, right? For a lot of people, he was fucking so big anyway, but he wanted to be like for the biggest human in the world, right? At one point. I'm trying to think of who else off the top of my head. I've never been asked that question before. And I sometimes the guy would wear the fucking loaded boot. You'd actually have to wear something in your regular boot that people couldn't see because of the balance situation, just to try to keep even if you had a loaded boot gimmick. Who else? I can't think who else might have worn lifts.
Jericho?
I've never heard of it. I mean, same thing. When I think of standing in front of him and Lance, I think, well, he's about the same height as me. You only a really short guy who's really insecure about it would want to wear lifts to be an inch or an inch and a half taller, or the real giant guys that wanted to fucking, get up there with Andre. Plowboy Frazier used to sell those goddamn boots. I don't know if they were lifts in it. He actually Plowboy Frazier had a Frazier Shoes and Clothes in Pascagoula, Mississippi for a while. And he was always bringing shit in the trunk of his car whenever he'd work the Memphis territory and try to sell the boys. Boots, fucking fake jewelry, fucking car stereos. At one time he sat down next to me in Tupelo, Mississippi in the locker room on the bench. He had just gotten out of the shower. And he fucking takes this mason jar out of his bag and unscrews the top a little bit and sprinkles some of that shit in his fucking hand. It looked like piss. And he starts slapping it underneath his fucking arms. I said, what, Frazier? What? He said, oh, it's my cologne, neighbor. I get it by the gallon. It's cheaper that way. He was always wanting to sell you something.
Our next question, Jim sent.
How did we get on Plowboy Frazier?
Lifts and boots.
Lifts and boots. Well, he had the boots. I don't know if he had lifts. Boy, you should have seen the Polaroids of him fucking the midget. Him at 6'10" and fucking 427 pounds, and this little girl midget that used to live in Memphis. Holy mackerel. It looked like an elephant and a fucking poodle.
Who took the Polaroids?
I think it was his friend that used to work at the night as the night clerk at the Days Inn on Summer. Floyd. Floyd was his name.
Are you being serious, or are you just?
I'm being serious. Yeah.
All right,
Floyd was there when he showed me the fucking pictures.
All right, well, let's get off Memphis
You know, that's another thing about fucking the wrestling business that just sucks these days. You go into a locker room these days, not one of these motherfuckers will have Polaroid pictures of them fucking a midget.
Well, because most of them are married to someone else on the roster.
Well, that's true. There's no fun in wrestling anymore. All right, go ahead.
All right, let's get far away from this one. Our next question, Jim, sent into CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Matt in Melbourne. Dave Meltzer reported in The Observer in April 1995 that Jim Cornette and the Gangstas would be appearing on the Jerry Springer Show, playing off their feud in Smoky Mountain. But in the April 24th Observer, Dave reported the deal actually fell apart because Vince McMahon stepped in and pointed out that in 49 other states, Cornette is viewed as a WWF personality and nixed the whole idea. My questions are, is this true? If so, did you actually film anything for the show? How did it come about? And what was Jerry like?
Well, it wasn't 49 other states. It was 47. But, and no, Vince didn't nix it, but Vince talked me into nixing it. This fucking, somebody had called us. And this was when, at first, Jerry Springer was somewhat of a shoot, right? They got these fucking knuckleheads on there and wound them up and let them go, but it was kind of a shoot. But then at some point, it became, when they ran out of fucking real knuckleheads, it became a work. And as a matter of fact, Jamie Dundee, JC Ice, he actually appeared several times and booked talent for Jerry Springer for a while in the late 90s, I think, when it was really just garbage and just all phony and made up. But anyway, somebody had seen the Smoky Mountain program and called us. They did the Jerry Springer Show, and I want to say Chicago. Is that correct? That's correct, I believe. And they called us, and they wanted to do a show about it, about the Gangstas, and then, you know, the wild-eyed Southern boys. So they were looking at, there's Tracy Smothers with the Confederate flag, and the fucking Gangstas with all their shit. And they wanted Bob Armstrong as the commissioner. And you know, I was going to be on because I could talk, I guess. I don't know, whatever the fuck. But I said, well, it might get us some goddamn publicity. So, okay, we'll fucking do it. And also, I was going to get all the guys a payoff. I was not fucking enamored of the idea completely because I wasn't going to fucking fly. I was too stressed at that point to go through flying. So I was going to actually, after a Johnson City show on Saturday, I was going to drive to Chicago on Sunday, do the taping on like a Monday, and come back on Tuesday to do post-production in Tennessee. But anyway, that was the weekend that Undertaker came up and did Johnson City and Pikeville, Kentucky. And the Gangstas mentioned to him that they were going to be on a Jerry Springer show, and he called Vince. And then Vince found me and called me at the hotel in Johnson City the day before the day of the Freedom Hall show. I'd come back from Pikeville and stayed in Johnson City and was going to do the show that night. And he did his Vince thing, his Vince Jedi mind trick, where I had no idea why he was calling me. We talked for 15 minutes, and at the end of it, I didn't want to do the goddamn Jerry Springer show anymore. Fuck the whole goddamn thing. Because he makes you see his, I mean, part of it was, well, you know, Jim, you're a representative of the WWF, except in the Smoky Mountain territory, and a blah, blah, blah. But I don't even remember what he said, but he's so smooth. He used to be. I don't know if he still can do this today. But how do you think he's gotten all those guys to do all those things that they didn't want to do? He just talks to you, and he gives you his side, and by the time you get off the phone, you're thanking him for calling you and smartening you up. But anyway, and then the fucking Jerry Springer people were hot on Monday morning when I called him and said, well, we ain't coming. But, you know, what are you going to do? But he had, you know, Jerry Springer was just going to be publicity and get the guys a payoff of some description, which is going to be a number of $100. But Vince had just given me The Undertaker for 2 big shows and was giving me talent. And obviously me and the bodies, actually, the bodies had already gone up. I was not managing the bodies anymore, but they'd gone up full time. But I was still working with Owen and Bulldog, blah, blah, blah. So he was more important. He didn't want us to do it. Okay, we didn't do it. But that's what happened. But that would have been interesting television. But they thought, I think, because they were trying to lead us like they were going to get cranked up like Tracy was some kind of Southern racist asshole and we were all racists and everything. No, they were going to get surprised because the anti-gangster crew was going to be the baby-facedest fucking bunch of people you've ever seen, and the goddamn gangsters were going to do everything but, sodomize live fucking babies on the air. So they would have got a different show than what they were thinking anyway.
Jim, let me ask you about something that was sent to me by a Cult of Cornette member whose name I probably shouldn't use or attach to this, but they are a member of what is called the WWE Fan Council. Are you aware of the Fan Council?
I've never heard of this thing.
Apparently you sign up for this, they let you in, and then they survey you about various WWE ideas, events, and they sent out a survey after WrestleMania.
So wait a minute. So basically it's a focus group that they solicit, make them feel like they're on the inside of something and that they're privileged people, and then hope that they will answer in a favorable manner the questions that they ask so that then they can use that biased and skewed information to make decisions or sell shit.
Precisely.
Okay.
May I ask you some of the questions they sent out on this survey?
Sure.
You could answer strongly agree, neither agree nor disagree, or strongly disagree. This is about WrestleMania. The event made the most of not having a live audience.
Well, I would strongly disagree with that, except that Charlotte and Rhea Ripley was so good. Mostly disagree.
There's strongly disagree or disagree. There's no mostly disagree. So which one would it be?
Oh, fuck it. I'll just disagree.
Supernatural and fantastical touches made the event fun to watch.
Well, what do you think I'll answer on that one?
Fantastical touches is a
fantastical touches. You shove your fantastical touches up your ass. There's my answer. I want you to strongly shove your fantastical touches up your ass.
There were many unexpected moments throughout the event.
Well, if I woke up tomorrow morning, I went out on my porch and there was a giant fucking pink elephant being sodomized by a fucking fisherman, I would be surprised, but it still wouldn't make any sense, so I'll strongly agree with that.
Adding cinematic action and cinematic elements increased my engagement.
We don't care whether you're engaged or whether you're just fucking around or whether you're friends with benefits.
That's not an answer.
Oh, fuck you. I strongly disagree.
Although technically it really did increase your engagement.
Well,
you went off for an hour on it.
I was fucking engaged, or yeah.
The event felt innovative and fresh.
Fuck you.
I will take that as strongly disagree. The match stipulations made the matches more exciting.
What the fuck? What stipulations did they have?
There was a ladder match. There was a last man standing match. I won't even get into the cinematic fantastical
Well,
matches.
that's it. The ladder match got in the way of the athletes involved. Could have had a semi-competent match if the ladders hadn't gotten away. And all of the shit, all the rest of the shit mostly sucked. The last man standing sucked as a match and a stipulation. Strongly disagree.
The use of off-site scenes and matches kept things more interesting.
Why are they are just writing these questions to try to get people to blow them? Why don't they bring it up the other way? Did you think that the fucking off-site location sucked? Word it like that. And then you could strongly agree or strongly disagree rather than giving all this flowery fucking pampered bullshit first. Your engagement.
This is no way to speak about a company that is woven into the fabric of society.
Well, I've been wondering what the fuck that stain was on society.
The length of championship matches were just right.
Well, wait a minute. The fucking long ones weren't, the short ones were the title matches.
The world title matches for the Universal title and the WWE title were relatively short. The women's world title matches were a little bit longer than that.
Well, yeah, they were about. That is right. Because they needed to, although the quick Goldberg and dipshit, what's his name, Strowman match just took the shine off of the quick Brock Drew McIntyre match, so they shouldn't have done that the first night, but otherwise they were about right.
The matches felt unique and different from recent events.
Oh, I strongly agree with that. It was different, all right.
I liked that the event used the entire I liked that the event used the entire arena for matches.
Oh, no, I disagree with that. They should have gone in the fucking turlet and fucking given each other a swirly, because they missed that completely.
Our final one from the survey, it's a little bit different. For shows without an audience, which of the below list would you like to see? I'll read you the list. Instead of you checking it, just say, yes, I would like to see that. Championship defenses.
No.
Outrageous moments during matches.
No.
Matches with stipulations.
No.
Inclusion of cinematic action and elements in matches.
Oh, hell no.
The use of off-site scenes in matches.
Fuck you.
Seeing fan reactions during matches.
I don't give a shit.
Matches with theatrics.
They've already got them.
In-ring promos from superstars.
On a wrestling program?
Seeing superstars in the arena as fans.
What the fuck? Well, I get... Now they're trying to say, should we do the same thing that All Elite's doing and makes a better atmosphere where you put 5 or 6 of the guys out there and have them make some noise? I don't want to see fucking, one of their top stars just sitting in the fucking bleachers and eating some popcorn if everything was normal. But yes, I'd like to see some of the people in the audience somehow, not the main event guys, making some fucking noise.
Having superstars as part of the match commentary.
You mean like a color guy? Wow, I've never thought of that before.
Picture-in-picture commentary for others during matches.
Fuck the whole picture-in-picture thing. Unless it's a split screen and they're both the same size, you can't see the fucking little thing to begin with.
Inclusion of celebrities.
Fuck celebrities.
Matches that occur outside of the arena.
Fuck matches that occur outside the arena.
And finally, supernatural, fantastical touches during the show.
What is fantastical? Or wait a minute, hold on here. The American Heritage Dictionary, 3rd edition. I'm going to the F's.
I understand. Scott Munns told Bill Watts there were no fantastical touches in New Orleans.
Yeah, we had a whole Superdome show and didn't have any fantastical touches. All right, Farm Fandango. What did we say? Fantastical, fantastic. Son of a bitch, fantastic. No. There's fantastically. Oh, also fantastical. Fantastic is also fantastical. Strange in conception or appearance. Bizarre as in form or appearance. Grotesque. Unreal or illusory. Well, there you go. Bizarre or grotesque. Yes. There was plenty of fantasticalness in those fucking cinematic masterpieces.
All right. Well,
what do they not only you said it best. Most of their fucking heels look like bad guys on a children's show that no adult would be afraid of, like Baron Corbin. And now they talk to their fans like they're fucking 13.
Well,
what the fuck? No, here's what I want out of the wrestling match. I want the bell to ring, and I want 2 guys to simulate kicking the shit out of each other in such a fucking professional way that I can buy it as being halfway legitimate, and that the 2 individuals involved come off like they're purported to be. That's what I fucking want. That's all I want. I don't need any more than that. It's not too much to ask. They got to spend $6 million to teleport fucking Aunt Harriet into the middle of the ring in the finish. Fuck.
Well, on a similar wavelength here, one of our final 2 questions, or I don't even know if this is a question, really. This was an email sent in. Before you continue, I'd like to ask that you not read my actual name, as I'm directly related to a WWE talent, and this could very easily be traced back to them.
Oh, my God. All right.
I don't know if you've seen this, but attached is the most recent version of WWE's social media policy for all contracted talent. This was sent out to talent just before WrestleMania aired this past weekend as a reminder of social media etiquette. I thought you might get a laugh out of some of the things that the roster can and can't say on social media. Would you like to hear this, Jim?
Well, I'd like to hear some of that because, after all, I try to have the proper social media etiquette. And I very, very rarely advocate for the nuclear bombing of anybody on social media. And I don't insult anybody on social media more often than once an hour. So I'd like to hear some of their rules.
Okay, and just for the record, we have not confirmed that this is an actual thing, just to give us a little bit of a waiver here. General rules, social media guidelines. Do not comment or speculate on rumors or future storylines. Do not reply to fans in the comments. Be sensitive of the language used and how it may be interpreted by dirt sheets.
They actually use the term dirt sheets.
That's what makes me wonder if this is legitimate or not, but we'll keep going.
Well, but actually, I can believe they would because they're the... go ahead.
Always present WWE and talent in a positive light. Do not use messaging that enables or encourages fans to speak negatively about the product. Always use sports entertainment to describe WWE. Do not use professional wrestling or wrestling unless quoting a superstar or executive.
You know, this sounds pretty legitimate.
Talent should be referred to as superstars, not wrestlers. Minimize the use of hashtags on Facebook. Only use them for very big initiatives. Only one show. Pay-per-view, feature, or marketing initiatives, specific hashtags per... I don't know what the hell this is trying to say here.
Yeah.
Do not use words...
I just make up hashtags, like hashtag fuck. You know.
Do not use words that trigger a spam label from its algorithm. For example, free...
Wait, what? What?
Do not use words that trigger a spam label from its algorithm.
Is that English? What does that even mean?
That means do not use a word that may trigger the platform to think that it's spam as opposed to an actual comment from an actual person. And apparently the words listed here that trigger spam are free, like, share, comment, buy, purchase, click, watch, YouTube, and available now.
Well, fuck, I've used a bunch of those.
Do not use talent names and or social media handles that your brand does not have endorsed rights to. This includes signature moves, aka pedigree or spear, signature phrases, aka smell la la.
What? What?
I guess when The Rock used to say, can you smell, or do you smell, whatever he used to say, it says in quotes, smell la la. Or signature
where
looks.
Smell la 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 la.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or signature looks, aka the people's eyebrow. Copy suggesting fans engage in, do not use, I guess they left out here, do not use copy suggesting fans engage in physicality. And words to avoid on all platforms: blood, choke, belt, strap, diva, feud, headshot, trauma, kayfabe, mofos, house show, DQ, the anti-diva, spinal injuries, victim, violence, violent, wrestling or wrestlers, WWF, wife beater, curb stomp, need a push, to be over, babyface, heel, to job, jobber, card, strangle, kill, and murder. And this apparently, allegedly, are WWE social media guidelines.
Well, I'm glad I don't work there. because I probably wouldn't be following those. I'm glad they didn't have that shit when I did work there, because I probably wouldn't have been following those.
All right. Well, one last question.
If you smell what Corny is cooking.
Smell la la.
Someone's in the kitchen with Corny. Someone's in the kitchen, I know. Someone's in the kitchen with Corny. Strumming on the old banjo.
Our final question before we play a couple songs. This was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Arthur. I have always wondered why Jim hates The Miz. Miz seems to check every mark Jim would like in a heel. He goes to get heat. It doesn't scare him. He is fantastic on the mic. He has a defined character, and he isn't an overly muscular steroid head. He looks like a guy. He is also dependable.
He looking like a man.
He doesn't get injured. He never misses dates, and he does everything he is told. You would think he would be one of Jim's favorites.
Well, I don't know where they got the idea that now what old platitudes did they say? Take them one at a time, those compliments that he just gave you.
He goes to get heat. It doesn't scare him.
I just saw him on a fucking commercial for his reality show hugging a small baby. How is that going to get heat?
He is fantastic on the mic.
I'm sure he thinks that he is. I've heard him. I mean, by modern day standards, I guess, yeah, he's glib when he speaks, but he don't intimidate me or piss me off or make any strong emotion from me with his promos. He's an actor. He's a guy. He's a regular guy. He looks nondescript and regular, and he's playing wrestler rather than being wrestler. I don't even think that's an original description. I think somebody else already said that about him. He looks like a guy playing being a wrestler rather than being a wrestler.
He has a defined character, and he isn't an overly muscular steroid head.
I don't need the warlord, but I need an adult man that looks like I might be intimidated by him. And that's what I saw, you see him standing next to any of the stars that are real stars of Austin or Rock or Triple H or fucking Taker or anybody in their prime. And you look at that. Why is this small child in the ring on my TV playing wrestler?
He looks like a guy.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I agree fully with that. I haven't seen it. I don't get it. I haven't seen it. Am I missing something, Brian?
He is dependable.
Well, that's a good thing. So was Tony Falk. Nobody ever said Tony ought to main event WrestleMania.
He doesn't get injured. He never misses dates. Didn't he just miss WrestleMania?
I think he did. But besides, here's the Miz. What did the Miz? It doesn't pass the name test. Remember the name test? I used to run it past Vince. Sometimes he'd listen, sometimes he wouldn't. For the WWF Championship, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock. For the NWA World Championship, Nature Boy Ric Flair versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. For anything at all in the world, The Miz versus The Miz. He was on a reality show. He got in the wrestling business and he's hung around.
And finally, he does everything he is told.
Well, there you go. That's a model employee. I would be more than happy to use him on the card, but I just don't get it. I don't see it.
All right.
And when Morrison walks out next to Miz looks like a frog. And Morrison walks out with that long fucking hair and the fucking fashions and that fucking ripped body and those abs, and he looks like a goddamn star. He looks like the fan ought to be blowing his fucking hair in the breeze and everything. And then Frogface comes out next to him and just, what the fuck?
All right, well, another episode in the books, down the drain, however you want to look at it. Of course, you can hear another episode of the Jim Cornette Experience when it debuts this Friday. I know we promised a lot of people that Jim would review the Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano theatrical, fantastical match, but it has not happened yet. He has not watched it yet. We'll try to get it done for this week's show. plus all other brand new, exclusive, wonderful content. The Jim Cornette Experience, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Of course, you can listen to The Experience and The Drive-Thru anytime on the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, storming our way to 1 million followers on YouTube. tinyurl.com/official corny YouTube, or just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. Full episodes.
Wait a minute. If I didn't get my cake for 100,000, what am I going to get jacked out of when we get to 1 million?
We'll send you another cake, but someone will jump out of it.
Well, I need to have a choice in that. I don't want just any strange person jumping out. I need to pick the person, or at least genre of person. We'll talk about that later.
We will discuss that later. We'll just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette for access to everything that is up. Don't forget the brand new, it's not brand new anymore. We're running out of steam here at the end of the show. Don't forget Jim Cornette's Patreon for Jim Cornette's College of Wrestling Knowledge. $5 a month gets you in the door right now for the initial tier. You get access to the archives of The Experience and The Drive-Thru going back to 2013. Another batch of episodes goes up each and every Sunday evening. Join right now and get access to countless hours of shows, as well as compilations of cursing and insults from the shows. Patreon.com/Cornette. Don't forget, you can follow Jim on Twitter at the Jim Cornette. You can follow me on Twitter at Great Brian Last. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast, 605pod.com, or available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. The Drive-Thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. Don't forget, Cornette's Collectibles. There's a new DVD deal. Tell them about it, Jim.
I already did.
That's JimCornette.com. But until Friday on The Experience and next week here on The Drive-Thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the Great Brian Last. Tally-ho!
Ree-ho!